It's Thursday, April 12th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we'll reminisce about one of our favorite toys, the Super Soaker. Let's do this.
Not only did it rain all day, but it's supposed to rain for the next 5 or 6 days, pretty much continuously here.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, the first work softball game I thought was last Friday is actually tomorrow, and it's probably going to be rained out. Which would kind of suck if I stayed in the city for nothing and then got home late for nothing.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm sure they would know if it's going to be rained out ahead of time.
You know how disorganized these things can be.
Well, if it's that disorganized, then half the people probably won't show up if there's a chance of rain, so don't even chance it.
Well, the thing is, if they don't show up and we do, we win. So you got to show. That's the way it works.
But who cares? It's a little league. It's not like the winning or losing matters. You only show up because you want to play softball.
I think it actually does kind of... I think there is like a prize. It's like a city league thing.
What do you think you're going to win? You think you're good enough to win the city league?
Who knows? I think the advantage that our team has, though, is that we're young people and we'll probably be mostly playing against middle-aged men.
Well,
we might be able to beat them.
While you are young people, I know how fast you can run.
You don't have to run very long. So
can you hit? When was the last time you swung a bat?
I can hit a ball.
When was the last time you swung a baseball bat at a projectile? And a wiffle bat doesn't count.
I don't remember, but I was always good at hitting, relatively.
Do you own a baseball mitt or a softball mitt?
Yeah, I do.
Where is it?
My parents' house.
Uh-huh. We'll see how well this goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I were you, I wouldn't bother showing up.
Okay. There's a couple games that are going to be on Fridays at like 5 something, so I'll probably go to those games for sure. Even if
unless it rains.
Well, yes, but the next game isn't until like a month from tomorrow, so it's not a problem.
I think the point is, this weather sucks, and I don't like it.
Yeah, what's the deal? It's supposed to be spring. It's supposed to be warm. I mean, okay, granted, it's finally not stupidly cold, and it's finally not snowing, which is, I'm glad for that.
Plus, we can't complain. No April showers, May flowers.
Well,
it's
fuck
still
that
April.
shit. It's not cold like, goddamn, I'm cold, but it's still too cold. I need a coat. It's wet. I can't just go outside and do what I want.
Actually, it's really not that cold. I was wearing shorts yesterday and the day before.
It's not warm enough. I can't go driving around everywhere with all my windows in my car open and no shirt on and be comfortable.
All right. But it's nice out, and I get to climb the mountain, and I got this camera, and I take a bunch of pictures, and then immediately, now that I'm all set to go hiking every day and all that fun stuff, it just rains every day. And you can't exactly go hiking in the rain, especially
Why
on a
not?
mountain. Well, one... on the mountains, when it rains, it's just mud and muck everywhere. There's no trail other than the mud and muck trail. Also, it's dangerous.
So go through the mud and the muck. Is it going to hurt you?
Yeah, because I'll probably fall off the mountain.
You suck then.
I'd like to see you get up there in the rain.
I will in my all-terrain vehicle.
There's no road that goes up that one.
I'm sure there's a road somewhere.
Not on that one.
Maybe on the other side.
No, maybe on another mountain in the ridge.
I'll just have to make a road.
I'd like to see you try.
Use my chainsaw. Anyway.
Chainsaw! Chainsaw on the rocks. Well, what are you gonna... Have you ever used a chainsaw?
My dynamite chainsaw. It makes roads out of rocks. I think we're done here. All right, let's move on to some news and not silliness.
There's no news. My thing of the day is crap because I couldn't find anything better. My news is lame because the only news was that Kurt Vonnegut died, and all I have to say about that is I really like Kurt Vonnegut, and I'm sad he's dead.
Really like Kurt Vonnegut, and I'm sad he's dead. You know, usually when people, like famous people die, I go, oh, that famous person died. And it's kind of rare when it's actually someone where I go, oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way when Hunter S. Thompson died.
I think I read less Hunter S. Thompson than I read Kurt Vonnegut, so I cared less, but I still cared.
Yep, though it was interesting at work. I was futzing with something, and I ended up moving someone's printer, and I noticed they had printed out an article about Kurt Vonnegut's
Really?
death.
That's how you found out? You know how I found out? I was standing waiting for the 6 train to go to work, and someone standing next to me had the newspaper open, and that article was right there.
Actually, I really found out on Fark, and then I just noted that someone else also cared about Kurt Vonnegut at my work. Granted, it was at the one place where all the cool people seem to be. You know, all the metal people and the Scottish stuff and the people who know about computers at least a little.
Yep. Oh, so did I say on the show about the guy in the subway who was reading Samurai Executioner?
I don't know. You told me.
Anyway, there's been a trend recently. If I see people reading comics on the subway, I think the subways and comics go hand in hand. I think yesterday I saw a guy on the subway and he was reading Samurai Executioner. I didn't know which volume. So I just went over to him and I was like, hey, Kazuo Kobake. And he was like, yeah. And that was that.
See, what you should have done is you say that. That's like the first test. Like, do you know who wrote the thing you're reading?
Mm.
And if he says yes, then you say, Gonagai? And just see what they say. Because then you've started a conversation. Because now that person's either going to think, wow, this guy knows Gonagai. Yeah. Or he's going to think, I better figure out what that thing he just said is, because it must be somehow related.
I should have said Ryuichi Ikigami. But anyway, then today I saw some lady, and it looked like her son or maybe grandson. I couldn't really tell. What do I know? They're strangers. And they had, it's not a good comic, but they had a Superman showcase, which is basically a big, fat, black and white book of a bunch of old Superman comics, and she was reading them to her kid, which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
Actually, this was like 3 days ago, but I was walking around in the Bronx, and I ended up standing by a traffic thing, and there was a kid walking with his mom, and he had a DS, and I heard some Phoenix Wright music. So I look at the kid, and I can kind of see his screen. He's obviously near the end of the first Phoenix Wright game.
Yep.
So I say, if something smells, it's usually the butts. And the kid is like, ha ha ha. And the mother looks at me with this look of, what did you just say to my child? And she just stares at me because I'm this 20-something guy who just said something about a butt to her kid who was like 11.
What did the kid say?
The kid didn't say anything. He kind of laughed, but at the same time, he seemed a little weirded out that someone talked to him who wasn't his mom on the street.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah. Though I think this should be a trend. Whenever you see someone who is engaged in some form of media that is fairly rare compared to normal people, that is something that you like, it's kind of a way to pick out the cool person in the crowd.
I think we just need like, if you're at an anime convention or any sort of geek convention, everyone's doing something geeky. But when you see something doing something geeky that you like, you always say, hey, I like that thing you got there. Hey.
I see you like mudkips.
Yeah, I heard you like mudkips. So we got to sort of bring that out into the real world, where in the real world, well, the non-convention part of the world, because conventions are still the real world.
Yeah. No, they're not.
No.
They're this fantasy world.
Exactly. When you see someone doing anything geeky at all in a non-geek environment, you have to say, hey, that's the rule. You have to say something, or else it sort of makes the world feel like there are the correct number of geeks about. You know how many stealth geeks there are? We got to unstealthify them.
Yeah.
The pirates must win over the ninjas. You have to be all flamboyant and wear your geekery on your sleeve.
I mean, that's part of the reason. It's all that social currency business with Nintendo and everything. I carry on my person at all times various artifacts of my interests, just in the hopes that
That's why you got to put stickers on the top of your laptop, and you got to put buttons on your bag, and you got to wear a nerdy t-shirt.
In all the jobs I have ever had, never once has any coworker ever seen any of the things I carry around and in any way recognized what they might possibly have been.
Yep.
At most, at best, they'd ask me like, so what the hell are those plastic things all over your desk? Or what's that stupid blue circle on your keychain? They know what Mario is, some of them, but that's about it.
Yeah, one of the 4 partners who runs my business has a lot of Mario action in his office. So fair.
Oh, you should have seen my office in IBM. I had PVCs and wall scrolls and posters covering pretty much everything on my side of it. And nothing. No one. Every now and then, one guy'd be like, I think my kid likes that stuff that you got on your wall. What is it?
So I have the Mario diorama in my office, the one where he has infinite lives in World 3, 1, whatever. But when I'm going to eventually move to a different desk, and when I do that, I'll probably bring some more pimpage, but not much. I like to keep it light and tasteful. I'm thinking about getting a retro robot.
So in the news that isn't depressing, not people we liked who died, I want to talk about this mostly because I have a little thing to say about it. I think I mentioned this before, but Chicago is talking about banning cocaine, the energy drink.
Not cocaine, the drug that is already banned.
Yes. Now, on one hand, I think the rationale for it isn't that it's dangerous, but that it promotes drug use, which is probably the stupidest thing ever.
That is pretty goddamn stupid. That's like saying that going to the cookware store promotes smoking weed.
What?
That's like saying that going to Stoner's Pot Palace promotes marijuana.
Wait a minute. So you were making a joke about, if people go and buy a pot, but then you didn't say pot. You went one step more ambiguous to the point that you didn't make a joke. You just kind of...
That was a joke.
It was barely a joke.
Anyway, yes, if there are two things that are
Talk
called
about
pot,
your false advertising.
if there are two things that are called pot, buying one does not suddenly make you want to buy the other. If there are two things called cocaine, buying one isn't going to make you buy the other.
Unless you're a kettle.
Unless you are a kettle.
I think my joke was much better than your joke. I could go one step further about Imus calling the kettle black pot something. I could go on a roll with this. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna leave it be.
That's a bad idea.
I think it was a great idea.
Yo, you didn't even know who Imus was until yesterday, so what do you... You can't really make jokes about him.
Why can't I? He suddenly appeared in the media because he was mentioned on FARC for saying something silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, now, while I'd say that these reasons for banning cocaine are stupid, I will point out that the energy drink cocaine, I have tried it. It tastes like an asshole. It's the worst thing I have ever put in my mouth. I'm dead serious. I've never tasted anything worse than this ever.
Well, I don't.
And I ate a rotten apple.
Yeah, well, I don't drink energy drinks, but I've smelled Red Bull, and Red Bull smells like cough syrup.
Red Bull tastes like wonderful.
Anyway, Rim seems to like that. So, if he doesn't like cocaine, and I don't like the smell of Red Bull, I can only imagine that cocaine must be pretty bad.
The smell of cocaine. If you just open it and take a sniff of it, it smells like vomit. I smell it and I just feel like I'm gonna vomit. It makes me nauseous.
That's not good.
I drank a sip of it and I sat there going, God, and then for some reason I took another sip. Like maybe the first sip didn't work. Maybe it's gonna taste different this time. It tasted exactly the same. I think I talked about this before.
Did you take a third sip?
Actually, no. I let it sit there on my
Fool
desk.
me 2 times.
For like 5 minutes because I didn't want to throw it away because it cost me like $3.25.
Oh, you bought it? I thought you got it for free.
No, I bought it.
Bad move.
Well, I needed a Red Bull because I was really tired. And then, hey, there's that cocaine drink. I've never seen it outside of the city. And I'm really tired. And it's not much more than Red Bull, which is horridly marked up at the drugstore I happen to be at.
Yeah, Red Bull is a lot of money.
Big mistake. But yeah, if Chicago bans cocaine, I'm really not at all mad about that, even though they're banning it for the wrong reason.
I really don't like banning things. I want to have as much freedom as possible, or as much freedom as is reasonable. So banning something that there's no reason to ban is not something I'm in favor of. But considering that cocaine tastes bad, is probably bad for you, and is in all ways bad, I'm not going to get worked up over
Well,
it.
cocaine is designed to actually simulate cocaine, so it has some sort of chemical in it that numbs your throat. Yes.
They can't be good.
It also has like 280 or 300 milligrams of caffeine in it, which is way too much caffeine. And that's coming from a guy who likes caffeine a lot.
There's a guy at work who drinks a pot of coffee before he comes to work.
A pot.
A pot.
How do you...
They were asking him. He was drinking coffee at like 3, and they were like, "Hey, how much coffee did you drink today?" And he's like, "This is cup number something."
Actually,
they're like, "How much did you drink before you came to work?" And he was like, "A pot." He was like,
there was
"No,
a guy
drink a pot."
back at IBM who drank gallons of coffee every day. He just carried around this gigantic thermos that he's had for like 20 years everywhere, constantly refilling it. But here's the thing. It was decaf.
Carried the cup on his belly.
It was decaf.
What the hell?
So I don't know why he was drinking it, because it's not like decaf tastes good in the first place, and you're not getting the primary benefit, which is caffeine. You're basically drinking bad-tasting water.
That's fucked up right there.
That's like drinking sugar-free Red Bull. What's the point?
My boss drinks sugar-free Red Bull. He comes into work every day carrying one.
Why? Half the rush of Red Bull is that you just drank a whole bunch of glucose.
I don't know, man, but that's what he drinks. All right. So you know that awesome TV show on the BBC called Top Gear that we have to watch on YouTube and Google Video?
Yes, which actually I prefer watching it on Google Video because it's not like I'd see it on TV.
Plus, when you watch it on Google Video, you don't have to watch the whole episode. You can just watch one segment that you want to see, and the other segments you don't have to see. Because not every segment is exciting and entertaining. Some of them are kind of okay.
I really only want to watch them do stupid things to cars, and I want to watch the Stig race.
That's pretty much it, yeah. Well, it seems like they might be in a deal to bring this show to the U.S. Judging by reading of this article, they're not going to modify it too much.
Too much?
Well, they're going to
Well, they gotta localize it. I mean, those people in England speak this weird ass language.
Well, I think they're basically going to keep the show format the same. I don't know if they'll keep the same host. They might do that. Who knows? They're still going to have people racing against the Stig. And just like in Britain, where they have British famous people race, the normal cars around the track to try to beat each other, they're going to have American famous people race cars around the track.
If it doesn't have the same host, I really won't care about it at all.
Me either, but it might. Who knows?
I mean, I'm interested in the cars, but the hosts of that show are the only reason I actually watch, because they're really funny.
Yeah, it's like, hey, and they're not... the thing that makes that show so great is that you have these really funny, really entertaining guys, but they're guys who actually know and care about cars, as opposed to famous people who were, professional hosts just happened to hosting a show about cars. They're actual car guys, which is why the show works. Which is the same reason why blogs beat the newspaper, because the newspaper are people who are journalists. They don't actually, usually, know about the thing they're writing about.
I think it also helps that they have Albionic accents, which, in America, as we've talked about before, tends to give the perception of increased intelligence, and among a lot of people, things just seem funnier when they have that sort of accent. Probably because a lot of us grew up on Monty Python.
It might be. It might not be. Who knows? But
I think that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, if the show comes to America, I hope it's still good, because that'll just mean more Top Gear for everybody. And maybe they'll just show the British show in America.
That's what I really want.
That would be fine, because then more people in this side of the water would know about it.
You know what? No, I don't want that. Because if they do that, then they're more likely to start taking the episodes off of YouTube. And then I'm less likely to actually see them. Because a TV show...
You know what they gotta do? They gotta put out DVD box sets of this thing.
So we can Netflix it.
That's right, Netflix Top Gear.
Yeah, because you only need to see an episode once.
If they do that, that would be hot. Hey, British people, do you have Top Gear DVDs? If so, send them to Geeknights.
Actually, if any of our Albionic listeners out there... I just like saying Albion and Albionic. It's not really a word, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
I just kind of added...
The only word is Albion.
Well, Albion is the noun, so by the rules of grammar and conjugation and such, I can add ick to it.
But we're talking about words from the other side of the ocean where those rules don't apply.
So, Albionish.
Albinish?
Albinites. Anyway, if you
Albino?
people from that island out there could in some way copy and then send to us DVDs of Top Gear, if you in fact have DVDs of Top Gear, we will shower vast riches upon you, though such vast riches may or may not exist.
I'll check Amazon.co.uk.
You do that.
Top Gear box set, £25.
25 pounds? That's it? For how many DVDs?
Hold on.
That's less than an episode of Freedom Cup Noodle.
It contains Back in the Fast Lane, Revved Up, and Winter Olympics.
It's still a better deal than Freedom Cup Noodle, but not by much.
No.
Things of the day.
Hey, Rim, do you have your own blog?
Actually, I was gonna ask you to put one on our server.
I
so
will.
That I can have my own
as
blog.
soon as I switch it over to the Ubuntu. But if you had your own blog, would you read it?
Probably. Otherwise, why am I doing it?
Exactly. Now, this is a website I'm linking to as my thing of the day. Is a pretty shady site. It's one of those SEO sites where they tell you how to get more people to come and all that BS, right? But it actually does have on this site a semi-serious blog on the topic, and this guy, his name is Ahmed Bilal, and he wrote a very short thing, and the short thing that he wrote is really good, and that's the only reason I'm linking to it. And he says, would you read your own blog? If you wrote a blog, would you read it? Would you subscribe to it and read it? If not, then why are you doing it? What the hell's the point? If you don't want to read it, no one else freaking wants to read it either.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt that you might not want to read something that you just wrote. Well, not that sort of thing.
Yes, this is why also in the short bit, he gives you a test, and he says, a simple way to test whether your blog provides value to the community is to put yourself in the shoes of your readers and ask yourself the following questions. Ready? 1, is the blog unique? Does it provide any information that I cannot find anywhere else?
Yeah, how many blogs literally don't do anything except post everything that Engadget posts and then add like one comment?
Or they, someone reads Dig, they find the comments, the links on Dig every day that they enjoy, and then they write a little thing about them that there should have been a comment on Dig, but instead a separate blog.
Now, why would you go to that when you can just go today.
And read the comments. 2, is the blog original? Does it offer personal opinion instead of regurgitating or echoing views that other people share? Yeah, a lot of people, when they write their opinion of something, are just sort of like, they're sort of joining the crew on one side or the other. So if it's like a PS3 or Wii thing, they'll write a blog post that's like, Wii is awesome or Wii sucks. They won't be saying anything new about it.
Yeah.
A point that all you have to do is make a few points that aren't in the debate already.
Or be funny. There's always the option of being funny.
Yeah, funny.
I mean,
good
if you're
too.
writing about Mudkips, maybe you like him, maybe you don't like him, but you got to say something about him. Maybe make a joke about a Mudkip. Maybe have an insightful, like, well, Mudkips are actually useful for blah, blah, blah.
Yes. You have to say something that no one else is saying, regardless of whether, Anyway, the third thing he says, is the blog essential? If I unsubscribe from this blog today, what would I lose out on?
Ooh.
Yeah, see, that's how I look at my RSS subscriptions is, whenever I go down the list of things I'm subscribed to and I say, if I unsubscribe from this, what would I be losing? And most of the time when I actually bother to ask myself that question, I end up
from like 10
unsubscribing
things?
from a bunch of things.
Yeah, I went through that with podcasts like 3 or 4 times where I'd look at a podcast that I'd been listening to and I think, did I actually enjoy listening to that? And all the time? No, I didn't. And what?
Yeah, it's
God.
like, it's so weird with this whole subscription thing. You have you subscribe to all these things and you listen to them or read them, or maybe you don't, but you subscribe to them. And if you just look at them, casually, you're just used to seeing them there on your subscription list. You don't unsubscribe from them.
Yeah, like Penn Radio did that. I got kind of sick of Penn Radio for a good 2-month span, but the episodes kept coming.
Yeah. But if you actually carefully consider the things you've subscribed to, you'll find that a lot of things will be off your list mighty quick.
Yep, a lot
Hopefully
of things.
not Geeknights.
A lot of things are very redundant. I mean, if I read Dig and Fark, I don't need to ever go to Slashdot because everything on Slashdot will be on one of those too.
Yep. So this is just a word to everyone out there who blogs or podcasts or anything of the sort. Think about whether you would read your blog or listen to your own podcast if you weren't the one making it. If someone else was making the exact same thing you're making, would you subscribe and listen to it? If the answer is no, you should probably change what you're doing.
Yeah, but I am thinking about having a blog. Just lately, I never really had one. I had the Slashdot thing. I think I posted in it twice.
Uh-huh.
And I think one of the things I posted, I also published in the awesome newspaper at RIT.
Oh, so awesome.
Remember that thing? I
Yeah.
actually got hate mail for that.
Yep. That was cool.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into that.
No,
That's a story for another day.
We could do a whole episode on that. Anyway,
Yeah, we should.
what's your thing of the
But
day?
I've just been feeling this desire to blog lately. I have things to say that really don't fit into Geek Nights, or maybe I don't want to say them out loud. I'd rather write them. And now that I got a Flickr, and now that my Delicious and my Dig streams, I could combine them all into one and have just the Rim feed.
Sounds good.
Yep. Anyway, my thing of the day is very much germane to the topic, mostly because I couldn't think of a thing of the day, and everything I looked at on the internet today was totally lame. So, this is the video that inspired us to do tonight's episode. It is a video with Lonnie Johnston, the man who created the Super Soaker, the man who, in 1989, 57, or 58, revolutionized the world of water sports. And by water sports, I mean squirt guns.
Not swimming and diving?
See, many of you might be too young to remember this, but there was a time when squirt guns sucked. It's like...
Most of my life? No, not most of my life, but a significant portion of my life. Pretty
I
much
mean,
every year until I was 5th grade.
It's kind of like the cavemen who didn't have any tools yet, the monkeys, and they're just rolling around doing their monkey thing. And then, when they have a monkey war, they just kind of claw and bite at each other. And one day, one of the monkeys picks up a stick and he hits another monkey with the stick. And that stick is so superior to any weapon the monkey had ever had before that he is now effectively a new being in warfare.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this video and then get into it. In the video, it shows the guy who invented the Super Soaker, and it tells you how he invented it. He was, working at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory or something like that. He was some sort of genius. And he ended up accidentally, he was playing with water or something, and it squirted out. And he said, hey, what if I use that principle to make a water gun?
You know what? Proof that the space program is infinitely valuable to human culture.
Yes. So he invented the Super Soaker, and with all the money he made from inventing the Super Soaker and selling the patent to Laramie, the company that made the Super Soaker physically, he bought himself a lab, and he never has to work again except for fun in his own personal lab.
Now, see, this guy exemplifies everything that people should aspire to. Not only did he do something that had
Well, not only A, he was a genius.
well, he did something that impacted the world in a tangible way for a lot of people. I mean, he didn't end hunger or cure AIDS, but he created
no Norman
something
Borlaug.
that did not exist at all, and he revolutionized a small but I'd say important to my childhood industry.
It was actually an invention and worthy of patents.
Two, he made a bunch of money off of it, and instead of just pissing the money away or doing whatever, he put that money toward his worthwhile pursuits. He put the money into having a lab. Just like if I had $1 million, I'd make a real recording studio.
And I would make a computer lab and a video game lab and many other labs.
I just like
Where
laboratories.
I would wear my lab coat and not much else. Okay.
I'll just let you.
It was a Lewis Black joke, remember? He was like, I did the experiment in my laboratory. I was wearing a lab coat at the time.
I do recall that.
Yes.
I do recall that now.
Lewis Black joke, anybody. Listen to
So-
Lewis Black.
There was a time when squirt gun fights there were basically 3 different levels of squirt gun, and that was it. First, there was the 50-cent or dime squirt gun.
This is pretty much the only squirt gun I had until the Super Soaker existed.
It was a little
was
clear plastic thing. It was either like bright green, transparent, or pink, or yellow.
It was shaped like a gun. It looked like a real gun in shape, but it was some clear plastic, and you popped open a little hole in the back.
With this piss-poor little white plug that had a little T on the end of it that kept it from falling out, even though it always fell out.
And you would turn the
anyway.
kitchen sink faucet on real low so that it would drip into there to fill it at the maximum rate.
And you'd stand there for
Or
like...
you'd use a funnel.
You'd stand there for like 10 minutes trying to fill the stupid thing.
And when you finally filled it and plugged it up, you would squirt it. And it worked with the same mechanism as like a spray bottle of Glass Plus.
Yes.
You know?
The thing is, you had to pump it or squirt it a bunch of times before it even worked at all.
Yeah, well, you had to squirt all the air out before it would squirt water.
Yep.
The same way you have to pump like a liquid soap before the soap actually comes out.
These things shot, I don't know, maybe 11 feet. And
they
shot...
didn't shoot very far at all. They shot this piddling amount of water.
It was so little water that if you got shot with it, you didn't even notice. Squirt
You
gun...
didn't even notice or care.
I mean, squirt gun fights, when I was a kid with these before the Super Soaker came around, effectively always ended in either some kid bringing a hose. God, I swear to God, this kid David, we were having a little squirt gun fight, and Dave, well, basically, we realized that with these little squirt guns, the only real tactic was to shoot other kids in the eye.
That's the eye. I was about to say the ear is good too if you get real close.
The ear is good. The eye was pretty
The
much
eye
it.
is the weak spot. That's what gets the boss down.
Yep. So this kid, we're having a little squirt gun fight, and he got shot in the eye like 8 times. So he just ran away. And we're like, so much for him. And we're fighting. And we see him run around the corner, because it wasn't that far away, like 20 minutes later. And he's got something. And then we realize at the last second, when it's already too late, that he has connected like 4 extension hoses to his house.
Oh my God.
And that kid owned us.
Why didn't he just use it at the house you were at?
Because we would have noticed and stopped him. There's rules about that sort of thing. If someone went for the hose, that's a stabbing.
See, even in the Super Soaker days, we would go for the hose. The hose is the ultimate weapon in water fights, and you always go for the hose no matter what. It always gets down to the hose eventually. You might as well go for it right away. But without the hose, even better than a Super Soaker was the water balloon, which has always existed.
Yeah, except for having to clean up after the water balloon.
Well, the thing is, they always had those ones that were shaped like grenades and looked like grenades.
Those are the worst
Those are the worst ones.
That-
They're meant to be water balloons, but they're the worst at being water balloons.
For some reason, they always broke when I tried to fill them. But when I threw them at people, they just bounced off.
Yeah, my favorite thing actually to do is to get the long ones, the ones the clowns use.
And then you throw them so they kind of spin in the air and wrap around someone's face before they break.
That I put one like down my pant leg. Well, I guess it'd be summer, so
What?
I have a short leg.
No,
And then
no.
you sneak up on someone and you whip it out and you smack them with it.
While I did often smack people with them,
Hmm.
but I'd usually have it like stuck to myself somewhere, like tied on a little piece of floss or string or something.
Oh, see, that would break off and
Well,
cause
it depends.
trouble.
Or
It would flop around.
I'd carry one like a sword, and then I have my little bag full of the normal water
See, if you
balloons.
carried it like a sword, it would bend over because it was too heavy, and then it would just break.
Wouldn't break.
Eh,
You gotta get quality water balloons.
I guess if your balloon is quality enough. then it won't break.
See, the problem was
weight.
when they were 2 quality, they'd either not break when you threw them at someone, or you'd have to fill them to such a breaking point with such an amount of water that they'd either hurt someone or just break on you.
Hurting someone is great. Yeah, how many times have I held a water balloon in my hand and it would just break in my hand? That's the worst.
That's the thing. It's like those weapons in video games that damage someone else a lot, but they have a chance of damaging you just as much.
I don't have a link, but there's a video that was on the internet recently somewhere that showed a guy getting hit directly in the face with a water balloon in like super slow motion.
Oh, that was awesome.
It was. All right, so
these guns obviously sucked, and basically, it was like the ancient Greeks having war. It wasn't advanced. The war was kind of this honor-bound. The kids all line up, and you basically would run up to another kid, put the squirt gun in their eye, and pull the trigger as much as possible.
And then they would cover their eye, run away, come back and do the same thing.
And your finger would start hurting because the only force...
They were not ergonomic at all.
No, they weren't.
And you had to keep pulling the trigger to squirt. Like, you'd pull the trigger once, and it would go, squirt.
And if you
then you had to let go and pull it again.
And if you pull it harder, it squirted harder, and they broke, and on the beach, they get sand in them and stop working.
I mean, literally, you would buy a big sack of these things from the dollar store because they were so cheap and
maybe
shitty.
half of them in the sack would work at all.
Yeah.
And then during the fight, you'd have to have like 4 in your pocket, because otherwise they'd break, and you would... But the one in your pocket would inevitably leak down your pants.
Yeah, so...
God, they'd leak around your hand while you were shooting them.
So sometime around 4th or 5th grade, which must have been, I don't know what year. I'm not even going to bother to figure it out. Sometime in the 90s. Maybe the late 80s. I saw it in the circular.
Oh, you're not going to talk about the other better squirt guns, that like the evolutions?
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Briefly. We won't go into detail like that.
There were squirt guns that were battery powered. And these were kind of crazy, and cool kids had them, but they actually sucked worse than the sucky ones.
They were always shaped like an Uzi.
They were shaped like an Uzi, and they were bright orange usually, and you'd fill them with water, and you put 2 batteries in where the bullets would go on an Uzi in the magazine.
Yep. Actually, mine, you had magazines with holes in them that you filled with water.
Oh, that's
plugs.
bad. That's real bad. Anyway.
It was bad awesome.
Yeah. And you would pull the trigger on it and it would go tick, 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 tick. And it would basically shoot wussier, shittier squirts than the handheld finger-powered one. But it would shoot a lot of them and you could just hold the trigger down.
Yeah, of
and
course.
And the battery would run out real quick.
God, the battery lasted like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was such an inefficient electric motor in there with the shittiest pump you could possibly imagine.
These things were expensive. I mean, think about it. These things were like $10 or $15. And a normal squirt gun was like 10 cents.
And the other thing is these things mostly broke pretty quickly. After 2 water fights, you threw it out.
The first one I got broke in the car on the way home.
Oh, man.
I cried.
I
cried. And we took it back to the store like right away because I was inconsolable.
Inconsolable.
I got another one, and I was so careful with it, and I brought it to a squirt gun fight, and I'm shooting some kid.
And it broke.
It didn't break right away. I shot him like 4 times, and then he hit it with his squirt gun.
And it broke.
And the end broke off, and all the water went poosh.
See, what I always wondered is why doesn't someone make a squirt gun, right? Where there's a tank of water, some sort of battery, a trigger, and one of those, the thing that's kind of water squirting motor that they use to spray windshield wiper on your windshield. Because that's pretty much a constant stream of water that's pretty powerful.
Why don't you just have the equivalent of a super soaker with the equivalent of an air compressor?
That would work too. Anyway.
So and then the only other kind of squirt gun. I mean,
the one where you go.
Yep. Scott just demonstrated it. But the only other weapon.
One shot.
These are ancient Greeks, and this was like the spear that
the
the early
one shot
Romans would
actually
throw.
is still a great squirt gun, and if you can find them, I don't think they make them anymore.
Oh, I'm saying I see them. Yeah? It's basically a bazooka where it's long tube, and you stick it in water, the nozzle, and you pull it, and now you've got
a tube of water,
a large cylinder of water. And the thing is, there'd be 1 or 2 kids in every squirt gun fight who would have, all the little squirt guns, and they'd give tick, 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 tick at each other. And then there's always be the couple kids that also on their back had 1 full bazooka.
Yeah, see, now the bazooka, I sort of equate it to sledding with a dish as opposed to sledding with a sled. It's like the bazooka is this weird water gun. It's not like the other water guns. But actually, it can do a lot more than it looks like it can do. Just like the sledding dish can go real fast, even though it's different from everyone else with their normal sleds.
Because whenever the kid dropped his sidearm and pulled that thing out, everyone would pause and back up. Because you knew he only had 1 shot. But you didn't want to be the one shot with it, because that thing got you wet. It was the only squirt gun that got you wet.
Yes, because the thing about it is, even when Super Soakers came out, the bazooka was still a useful weapon, because you would basically pull the two ends of it together, and he would fire the entire cylinder of water, like almost a gallon of water, at once at one person real fast.
It was
and
a
wasn't
bazooka.
much you could do about it.
It was awesome.
It's still awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely a valid part of any... you know what? It's one of those weapons that stood the test of time.
Yeah. So one day, when you're a kid, you look at the toy circular. The newspaper comes on the weekend, and there's a little advertisement that says, hey, here's all the toys at Toys R Us or Toy Works or KB or wherever your toy store is. And you look through that for new toys. You go, ooh, I want that action figure. Ooh, look at those new video games. It's actually how I found out about new video games before video game magazines, is that I was looking at the toy circular and look at the pictures of the video games. Anyway, I saw a water gun in there, but it was all weird looking. It was, first of all, it was yellow and green, and I was like, what? And it had this weird bulb on it.
It looked like an alien weapon.
It did look like an alien ray gun, and I looked at the picture, and I said, that's corny as hell. Who the hell would want that thing? And I didn't want it.
It was also expensive. I mean, every kid knew that those Uzis were crap because every kid had one and then it broke. So it was still, the $1 squirt gun. Maybe you'd get the $2 nicer one. I was made out of slightly thicker plastic. Mm-hmm. What kid was going to convince their parents to drop $25 on a squirt gun?
Yeah, I was like, $25. My mom's not going to buy me that. What the hell? There's no way. So, of course, eventually, a kid on the street got a Super Soaker 50. I don't know why they started with calling it the 50, as if there was a Super Soaker before the 50. So they had to call this one.
Because then they made the 25.
Oh, that's right. I remember why they called it 50, because it could supposedly shoot 50 feet.
Yeah, and the 100 could shoot 100 feet. And
supposedly.
It could shoot about 80 feet.
It could shoot pretty damn far. I mean, you really had to get that thing going to get it shoot the number of feet it was advertised at shooting. But it could shoot hella far.
To give you an idea, the first squirt gun fight where a kid came with the Super Soaker was like when Shaka Zulu broke the rules of warfare, ran over to the other side, and killed all those dudes.
It was like the invention of the Maxim machine gun.
It's like if in the middle of a Roman battle between the Romans and the Persians, one guy walked over with a sawed-off shotgun.
Yeah. See, I remembered the first battle in which the kid down the street had the Super Soaker 50, and we did not. We ended up running to the house a lot, getting lots of water balloons, coming out and running back into the house, because basically he couldn't be stopped. He wasn't by far the best water fight kind of person.
Yeah, he didn't have that get it in your eyes skill.
No.
He didn't need it anymore.
He
had an automatic weapon.
By sheer possession of weaponry alone, nobody, even like 5 kids were no match for the one kid with the Super Soaker 50.
I mean, we'd all thought, all right, he's gonna run out of water. Look how much water he's shooting. Good God.
He had a whole tank of water. We had a tiny gun of water.
If we all just surround him, he can't get us all. And he would just get us all anyway, because it shot so much water, and it never seemed to stop shooting.
And if he needed to stop, he would go to the hose to get water, and where you would never approach someone at the hose.
See, what we always did is we always took the shooting thing off the hose, so it was just the end.
Yeah, so you put your thumb on it because you're not an idiot.
Yeah, but the thumb method wasn't that effective. And it was
you suck at the thumb method. The
no,
thumb
no,
method was far
superior. You know why it's
superior
not that
than the
effective?
gun method.
Because it's real easy to run over and just grab the kid's hand, and now he's soaking wet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Of course, some kids would bring those special 9 different nozzle attachments.
Those ones are no good. The only ones that are good are the straight ones, because they have the best single jet of high power mode that the multi-mode ones don't have.
Or sometimes we just get rid of the hose and it was just all the faucets on the house.
Ooh.
Because then if you were really desperate, you put your thumb on that thing. But...
Well, actually, remember, there were a lot of different systems that they eventually invented where you'd put a special thing at the end of the hose, and you'd stick the front of your water gun into it and it would fill your water gun. Those came a lot later. I never tried them, so I don't know how reliable they are. But supposedly, I guess they still sell them.
I got to say, though, but this is a side. We're not talking about water balloons. That's beyond the scope.
Yes.
But nothing was worse than trying to fill water balloons with a full-on hose. It was just like,
break.
Rip, bam, rip, bam.
You had to fill it at a sink in the house and then put him in like a trash bag and carry him outside.
Yep. Plus, the enemy of the hose was always the kink in the hose.
The kink of the hose.
But the Super Soaker Kid was unstoppable. He was a centurion in full armor, and I had sticks.
So as in every other arms race in the history of man, everyone else, as soon as one kid in your block had a Super Soaker, everyone had to get one or be eternally wet.
Yep. And the thing is, all right, now everyone had one, and the playing field was equalized, but now Super Soaker changed the nature of squirt gun warfare. Because now we were all equal again, but water fights had this completely different dimension.
You'd be far away from people. Everyone would get soaking wet. Everyone would take a break at the same time to refill their water. You would be far. You'd run around a lot more. You wouldn't have to get right up in people's faces. People would stop to pump. It was kind of crazy.
I pumped continuously. I never stopped pumping.
I also pumped continuously, but that meant you ran out of water faster, which
Well, I wasn't shooting continuously. Even if I wasn't shooting, I was always pumping right until I heard that little valve thing inside, the pressure release, start releasing. Then I knew that I'd pumped it to the max. I realized later, after I had long since lost and broken all my super soakers and gone to college, that I could have just gotten rid of that valve and made a super soaker that was either real powerful or would have broken.
Yep. Yeah, so when did you actually go and get your super soaker? Your mom just get you one or what?
Pretty much. I think my parents actually said, hey, there's this new super soaker, and I didn't care. And then I came back from the first squirt gun fight where someone had one, and I was like, I need a super soaker. And my parents said, all right. And they got me a super soaker 50.
Yeah, see,
and then,
we had a different situation where, because like I said, I wasn't into it right away, I didn't really want one when they were available. And then all the other kids figured that out the day before me, and they were sold out everywhere.
So you showed up to fights, and you didn't have a super soaker, I take it.
No. But we eventually went to a toy store that said they were going to have them in, and my mom actually drove me to a toy store early in the morning when they opened, as the shipment came in or whatever.
See, the thing is...
And they didn't get any 50s. So I got the unthinkable. I knew it existed, but no one had one. It'd be crazy to have one. No one's parents would actually buy them but my mom bought me the 100. See, I got the 100 and not the 50 because that's what the store got in that day.
See, I actually got the 100 almost immediately after getting the 50, and I always carried both.
Whoa, you were rich and spoiled.
Yeah. Mostly due to credit cards.
I was spoiled with the 100, but goddamn.
Oh, the 100 was so great.
No one we knew had the 100 but me. It was crazy.
The 100, unlike the 50, which had one little tank, and you pumped it up and it put air in the tank.
It had the special bulb.
Yes, it had the bulb. So what you did is you had a tank, and when you pumped it, it forced water into this other tank, and it pressurized it there, and that is where the water came out when you shot. Now, the key advantage of this, other than, of course, a lot more power, a lot more water, was that you could take the tank off the front and you could still shoot the water that was in the reserve. So you could defend yourself while refilling no matter what your source was.
Yes, the other thing is the bulb in the back that held the pressurized water. See, the Super Soaker 50 pressurizes the water in the tank that is also the supply tank. So if you take that thing off, you lose all your pressure and you have to refill and everything. When you pressurize in a separate tank that's never going to be removed from your gun, that tank is made out of much stronger plastic than the refill tank is made out of. And you could get a lot more pressure into that little thing than you could imagine. Yep. Also, you could pump it so much that there would be no air left in there, and it would just be water. Solid water.
Well, there was actually air in there. Otherwise, it wouldn't work because water's not compressible.
I know, but it would be under such incredible pressure.
I mean, I remember times when I'd shoot it, and it came out with such force that it didn't come out in a straight line anymore. It kind of spattered at the end.
Really? I didn't have that problem.
Well, it was more that I'd pump it until the release valve was hissing inside of it. Mm-hmm. And I'd keep pumping while I shot.
Yeah, it's like they say in the instructions, pump it X times. No. You pump it until you can't physically pump it anymore. Yep. You just keep pushing it harder and harder.
Because you couldn't break it. If it hit a certain pressure, it would just start leaking internally.
Yep.
That was a safety mechanism so it wouldn't explode or hurt you or anything. Also, so you wouldn't break it immediately. Because, otherwise every kid would just pump it until it broke.
Yeah, that was one thing. While Super Soakers did break and did require replacing with future models, they didn't break quite that often. I mean, the Uzi ones were incredibly unreliable compared to the Super Soakers.
Yeah, I mean, the only Super Soaker that ever broke on me was my 50. Started not working so well, and then it broke, and I kept repairing it.
Yeah, my 100 lasted me several summers. I replaced it with one of those ones that had two side-by-side tanks, and that lasted me a few summers.
Oh, I never got that. I stopped at the 100. Though, a kid in my neighborhood got the 200 the day it came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had this one I replaced the 100 with was the XPS something, and had two side-by-side tanks, and the jet of water it shot was 4 times as thick and powerful as the one the 100 shot.
I don't know what it was, but pretty much by the time all those Super Soakers started coming out was right about when I gave up on squirt guns and water fights altogether and moved almost entirely into water balloons and Nerf combined.
Yeah, see, that was the last one for me, but my brother went one step further, and he got the one that was basically, it looked like this giant laser rifle. It was like the CPS something 1000. It was ludicrous. And you would pump it a whole lot, and it had this purple tank on the back. And when you fired it, it fired like an inch radius jet of water that was like 6 feet long. Like the jet of water that came out was 6 feet long, and it would go far, and if it hit you, it was like getting hit with 5 water balloons. But you could only shoot it about 3 times before you were out of water. But it was pretty crazy.
Now, Super Soakers have continued to evolve, and I used to think, man, these new Super Soakers aren't like the old ones. They're crap, because they look really dumb, a lot of them. However,
and a lot of them look like they're made of shittier plastic, or
yeah,
have lots of gimmicks on them that are just going to break and aren't actually going to help you out.
However, in terms of actual power, I'm going to read a quote here. From one of the new kinds, these constant pressure systems, which actually have a rubber chamber that expands and exerts pressure on the water as you pump it.
Wow.
Yeah. Quote, in larger models, the resulting blast is forceful enough that recoil can be felt. So, Scott and I have seriously been considering buying just 2 of the best normal-sized, easy-to-deal-with Super Soakers.
Yeah, not the monster XXXXXLIVIX.
No, but probably the modern equivalent of the 50 or the 100. And just keep them around.
Well, I did buy one of those when I was a camp counselor after my freshman year of college. That particular instance of being a camp counselor. Our cabin had like a huge water fight. Because, of course, all these kids brought Super Soakers to camp and never used them. So we had like people up on the roof of our cabin and all around our cabin making water balloons and water everywhere. And none of us seemed to think there was a problem, and none of the people running the camp thought there was a problem. But counselors of the other cabins didn't like it because they thought we were being irresponsible or something. And they got upset that our cabin was having fun and theirs wasn't. And they were also getting wet, and we're like, just don't come near our cabin, dumbasses. But yeah, at that time, I just went to the grocery store and bought the Super Soaker they had there, which was like an XPS 100 something. It was pretty good for the standard cheap Super Soaker.
Yeah. See, it's sad, but I think the reason I dropped out of all this stuff pretty much right after the 100, like at the end of the 100's run, was that by then I was becoming more competitive in my life. And me and all my friends realized that with Nerf battles, you could have an actual game where if you're hit, you're out, or if you're hit, you can't use that body part, or 3 hits and you're out, or capture the flag, if you're hit, you're out, or you have to give up the flag or whatever. And we played actual games instead of just get each other wet.
And if paintball and airsoft had been around, you would have played that instead.
Well, paintball was around, and I wanted to play paintball. It was just expensive, and
it's cheap now.
Yeah, now it's cheap.
Yeah.
Actually, we're really thinking about getting into paintball and airsoft in the near future.
Maybe. We'll see how it goes.
In the very least, we've already decided we're going to buy a bunch of cheap airsoft guns and play some airsoft.
Yeah. I don't know if you really want to do that. We already know I'm the laser tag god, so I might just...
I don't know.
If we're playing airsoft, you're all going to get hurt pretty bad.
You were the god of Laser Quest style laser tag. However, in the team-based QZAR, I know that I won 2 tournaments at the biggest QZAR in the world in Tennessee.
Yeah, mostly because you were just carried by your team.
No, because usually I was the one who was taking people out, invading the base, blowing up the base, and getting out. Plus, I was one of the few people who figured out how to use the grenade, because they didn't tell you, but I read the thing, and it said how to use the grenade.
Yeah. Anyway.
We got to do a show on laser tag.
So, I guess that...
Don't let us forget to do a show on laser tag.
You want to wrap this show up?
I don't know.
I guess the only other thing to say about Super Soakers is that there's a lot of people modding them for great awesome. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to think, hey, what else could we put in here besides water? Well, why don't we put in ammonia? No one ever actually did it. Of course, everyone kids like, what do we fill it with pee?
Oh, remember those they were the cheap crap squirt guns, but they had the gimmick that they came with blue or red disappearing ink.
I remember those. Wasn't that a Nickelodeon toy?
I think it was.
I don't remember. I remember seeing commercials on Nickelodeon.
It didn't really work. It either stained your clothes or it disappeared immediately.
It was no good.
It also smelled
one kid
bad.
had one and no one cared because the Super Soaker was God. If
you
came to a water fight with one of those, people just get pissed off at you and only attack you.
Well, one kid thought of the great idea of fill a Super Soaker with that. Then he realized how expensive that stuff was.
Well, it was just like any other, thing where they charge for refills at the toy store. It's overpriced and a ripoff.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope everyone out there where it's not warm enough yet to have water gun fights is now really sad because it's not warm enough to have water gun fights, and here we are talking about Super Soakers and their awesomeness.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.